AT&T believes that your phone is part of what makes you, you. So we understand why you're holding it as you go about your daily activities. Because, truth, nothing should come between you and your connectivity. AT&T 5G is fast, reliable, and secure. And it keeps you connected to family, friends, fun, everything you care about. You'll enjoy fast speeds while you download apps, share your videos, or get your game on. All thanks to AT&T 5G. Requires compatible plan and device. Coverage not available everywhere. Learn more at att.com/5G for you.
It's time. Time to get credit for the work you've done. Time to get the recognition you deserve. With Purdue Global, you can move forward in your career, for your family, and for yourself. You're worth the investment in yourself to earn a degree you're proud of, a degree that employers will respect. Purdue's online university is designed to support working adults like you who know it's never too late to accomplish your goals. It's never too late to make a comeback. It's time to start yours today at purdueglobal.edu.
What up? It's Dramos from the Life as a Gringo podcast. We are back with a brand new season. Now, Life as a Gringo speaks to Latinos who are born or raised here in the States. It's about educating and breaking those generational curses that, man, have been holding us back for far too long. I'm here to discuss the topics that are relevant to all of us and to define what it means to live as our true, authentic self. Listen to Life as a Gringo on the iHeartRadio app, Apple Podcast, or wherever you get your podcasts. Brought to you by State Farm. Like a good neighbor, State Farm is there.
You're listening to 100 Words or Less with Ray Harkins.
You are joining me again for another conversation with a person who is influential, doing cool things in and outside of the world of independent music. And the guest this week he fits that criteria to a T. It's crazy how I do that, right? Like, I set up the premise of a show and then I'm able to deliver a guest. Unbelievable, right? Anyways, that was sarcasm in case you didn't pick up on that. But the guest this week is Paul Koehler. He is the drummer for the band called Silverstein, who I've known these guys for years and years. And actually, this is the third member of Silverstein who has appeared on this very show. And this is the first time that's happened. So I'm diving deep into this band. I think this may be the first band that I'll collect all of the members, which I joked around with some of the guys in Law Dispute that I would eventually do that as well. But we'll get around to it, I promise. So let's run through some updates, some chit chat, and then we'll get into the conversation with Paul. And if you're joining us for the first time, thank you. I appreciate it. The show's been holding steady. Like, there hasn't been any huge leaps recently in listenership, but that's fine with me. But the biggest favor you can do, there's two things that you can do to spread word of the show. First of all, tell your friends, because word of mouth is ultimately the best thing. Because, really, you're checking stuff out that your friends tell you to check out. You're not checking this out because I'm taking out ads on Facebook, which I don't do, or ads on Twitter, which I don't do as well. But just do that. Spread the word as you normally would other stuff that you're into. And then the second way to do that is dive into the iTunes store and leave a rating. As bizarre as it sounds, that really, really helps the show. It bumps us up in the charts, and then therefore people will check it out because it has a higher rating and blah, blah, blah. So anyways, do those two things. I would really appreciate that. And I hope that your holiday season, the ramp up to the madness that is Christmas, is going okay. Like, you've got your presents taken care of, you got your travel plans all situated, whatever else, you got to do for the holiday season. I hope that is underway. Mine is going well. I am going to be traveling to Las Vegas, where I spend it with my grandfather, who is 94, 95 years old. And it's weird because, he's almost dead. I mean, there's no other way of putting that. And his health is pretty solid for a 95-year-old guy. But basically, every time Christmas rolls around, I'm really thankful that I have another year with him. And it's just, so it's this weird, joyous, yet at the same time in the back of my head where I'm like, man, next year, could be completely different, where he will no longer exist in my life. And he's a huge reason I am who I am today. And sorry, this is a total tangent, but I'm on it. I'm on it right now. But because my grandparents were hugely influential in my life, and they helped pick me up from school, and they helped my mom out because she was divorced when I was coming around 4 or 5 years old. So they helped her out tremendously. And so, yeah, basically my grandfather's great. And it's funny because I actually did an interview with him that I'm planning on airing at some point, maybe on this feed, maybe on a separate thing. I'm not 100% sure, but I did an interview with him where I just walked him through his life, and it's the shit that people go through is unbelievable. Because, here's this person living for 95 years, seeing both world wars, and, here's me sitting behind a computer, and I'm just like, oh, I've done some stuff. I've toured, and I've seen things, but it's like, no. My grandfather's seen things. I haven't seen anything, comparatively speaking, to him. But anyways, I hope that you hold your loved ones close for the holidays, because that's what you're supposed to do. So anyways, I started a new job as well, and that has been awesome. It's super overwhelming, super intimidating, and I'm trying to, fake it like you make it, or fake it until you make it, whatever the saying is. Trying to make sure that I'm portraying confidence in who I am and what I'm doing from a profession. So, anyways, just had to throw that update in there. But let's dive into to Paul. So, Paul, like I said, is the drummer for Silverstein, and typically drummers get no love. Paul has fortunately, kind of come out in regards to people interview him, and he's not just like, oh, yeah, it's the guy that plays drums, and that's kind of it. So yeah, it's exciting to be able to talk to Paul because I've known him for years and years. And then it was funny because I feel strange when like a publicist hits me up to like talk to a friend, and I'm like, oh yeah, no, like I know him. I could have reached out to him, but it's like sometimes these things don't occur to me because they're my friends, and I just don't immediately think like, oh yeah, like I mean, realistically, it's like Paul, I could have spoken to him at any time in the past 3 years, but then it just kind of all synced up where I'm like, oh, okay, this makes total sense. So Paul is a great guy, very soft spoken, but at the same time, super, super intelligent. Not like those things are mutually exclusive, but he just has a very, very cool vision for not only his band, but where he sits in it, where the band sits from a sort of scene/musical perspective. It's really, really engaging because I think that Silverstein is such an anomaly. The fact that they're still around, the fact they can still draw people when most other bands from that era have either dropped off precipitously or just simply don't exist anymore. So, yeah, anyways, big shout out to Paul. Thank you for coming on the show. We had to reschedule this a few times. And yeah, without further ado, here's my discussion with Paul, and I will talk to you after the episode is over. So I was trying to reflect on where because I get introduced to Silverstein obviously because Bill was a Punisher, and he came up to me at Chain Reaction and was like, "Hey, I know you." And then I want to say that I met you that night when you guys were on tour with, I think it was Strike Anywhere. I want to say I want to say I met you then as well. Like I met you and Bill the same night. But it's I don't know. It's just one of those things that I'm sure most of your friends that you have are just like, oh, I couldn't tell you when I first met you. Like, it's just kind of a blur.
Well, it's funny too, because I mean, I saw you play in Oakville. I didn't talk to you then, but I saw. So like, it's like I knew you. It's like right. I knew you all before I knew you. You know what I mean? It's like I know what he does. I know what his whole thing. You know, it's like. So when you like meet someone, it's like, yeah, like I know you, but I don't know you. You know, it's one of those kind of things. So it's really, it's a really funny introduction if there is one, you know, because it's like you're already familiar.
Yeah, it is awesome. It is interesting too because I think that obviously that experience happens across all different mediums, but it's interesting where it's like now you can obviously I had a weird experience yesterday where it's just like I recently started a new job and like had like a lunch with a person, and he was like, oh yeah, I did some deep Google research on you, and it's one of those things where it's like it's kind of weird that your reputation could precede you, not only because you know what the person does, but then you're able to get even more context for a person. So like,
oh yeah.
I don't know. I mean, is it one of those things where it's like when you obviously meet people who are, just because you've toured with so many bands and you do generally meet a lot of young, people in their late teens, early 20s that, their reputation may have preceded them. Like, is it one of those things you kind of have to reckon with it in your own head where it's just like, all right, I've got to give this person a fair shake, even though I've heard horrible things about them on the internet or whatever,
Well, that's what's tough about I think musicians even, because it's like, there's so many people that even have like kind of a stage persona and then have a real life persona. Look at the whole genre of metal. It almost comes across completely different than any of those guys. Some of the best dudes I know in touring are metal guys that, on stage, they look like the toughest, brutalist, crazy guys. And then, you have like lunch with them and they're like talking about, I don't know, mowing their lawn or something. I don't know. You know what I mean? It's just like, it's so funny. See, when you get to know somebody, it can come across completely different. Or you hear like, oh yeah, that guy's like such a total dick. And you're like, hey, he was super nice to me. I don't know why people are passing these bad rumors around, but it's really interesting, at least in the music reputation world. I think it can be really deceiving.
No, it totally can. Cause I've always lived kind of by the principle where it's like, okay, this person may have a bad reputation because of, reasons A, B, and C, but like, as long as they have treated me and like the people that I obviously hold close, like, well, I can't ascribe to that, the reputation preceding them,
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, you need to be true to yourself and kind of make your own judgments. It's tough. It's tough with reputation. If you don't know how to kind of work into that, you can step in all cautiously, like, I heard this, but then be proven wrong. It's a crazy thing.
Right. On that same note, I mean, you definitely always struck me as a person who, you're not loud, boisterous. Like, you're definitely the type of person who, I don't mean to paint you with a broad brush, but it's like a person who would be identified as a drummer, where you're just like, dude, I love to be in the pocket. I don't need to be the center of attention. Is that a accurate representation, or do you feel like there's obviously some nuances in there that I'm missing?
Yeah, I think it is. I mean, I think it's because I think I classify myself. I think it's like a good drummer. I think I'm good. But I think to be good, it takes a lot of focus and a lot of work. Where like I've toured with guys, they're drunk out of their mind. They don't warm up. They get on stage and they shred it, and they're awesome. I obviously I don't drink, so it's not an issue for me. But also I can't do that. I have to like be warming up an hour before this set, and I need to like get changed and be ready, and I need to like not have eaten a meal right before. Like I have to like get in the headspace. I think that's just me. So it takes a lot more work to kind of get to be able to do my thing a lot as best as I can, but I take it really seriously and really prideful. Plus, I think I've really had a big affinity for a lot of the behind the scenes stuff. So that takes a lot of time, where it's like the dudes will be partying and it's like, well, I'm checking my email and I'm planning the next stage. I'm always in that kind of mode. I'm on tour, but I'm like working on the next tour already and just trying to like keep the ship afloat and just realize that my whole mentality is like it's sink or swim. It's like I don't want to be 10 years down the road and look back and be like, man, that one tour where I like total slacked off or like didn't care. It's like, man, if I only like cared a little bit more, it would have been so much better. It's like I just want to put it all in right now while I can, because tomorrow it could be over, or tomorrow I could move on to something else. So that's kind of where I'm at. I think it took years to get to that spot and to even take some of the stuff even more and more serious, but you kind of learn your strengths and weaknesses. And I think that's true with any profession or hobby. And conveniently for me, my hobby is my profession, Yeah.
No, that's very interesting, because I see, I would never have that would have never immediately occurred to me what you're talking about in regards to obviously like the craft and the sort of preparation. But I do notice it in you, because the times that, I've seen you at shows and, we've hung out, it's definitely like, what you're talking about, like the warm-ups and obviously the sort of ritual that happens. Not only is it obviously, like you said, to prepare you for the show, but it's one of those things where you're focused, like you said. It's definitely not just something you take lightly, because I think it does, when you've been a band, obviously, as long as you guys have, it definitely is easy to either, be lazy, to like not care as much and just be like, well, whatever, we could dial this set in or whatever, just to have sheer repetition, like no fault of any band that does that. But it does seem that you guys obviously take what you do seriously, and there's a sense of pride about that.
Yeah, and I mean, you still have to become adaptable. I mean, there's been days where, your bus is running late, or you've had a long drive and you're playing early the next day, and you're literally rolling in right onto stage, and you got to be able to do it, and we've done that. We've been through every kind of ups and downs and emergencies and breakdowns and stuff like that. And you adapt to make it work. But 90% of the time when things are smooth and you have the time, I mean, I treat the small club show to 100 people the same as like a festival to 100,000. It's like my whole kind of preparation and my whole mentality is exactly the same. But I think that also comes because playing the drums is a physical thing, and it's like you kind of can't really cheat it in a way, because otherwise you're going to be super sore, or you're going to like not play as well, or this or that. So that's kind of where it comes down to for me.
Yeah, no, that's awesome. Have you always been kind of the sort of focused person, as it were, where it's like, did you apply yourself in the same way to, school, and like, because you definitely do seem the sort of person, just because like you were mentioning too, obviously handling a lot of the business for the band. Was that something that you like kind of learned how to do, or that was always kind of in your blood and in your DNA?
Yeah, I mean, like I was like 16 when the band started, so I was young. I was in high school, but I was doing like, I guess, like more difficult courses, like all like calculus and maths and computer programming, and like I was all about all that kind of stuff. And like went to school for engineering, but dropped out after the first semester because we got signed and had to make an album. So did all that kind of stuff, and it was always like, I think it was a two-sided thing, because as much as I like being hands-on, I like learning about stuff and working behind the scenes. We came from like the DIY kind of era. Like every band in our hometown, like, either self-recorded or self-produced their album. They went and like photocopied the covers. They burned the CDs on their home computer. They assembled it and then sold it at the merch table themselves. Like that was just the mentality. So you designed everything, you packaged it all yourself, you created it all. So that was just kind of in all of our own blood anyways, coming from kind of the DIY music scene of like early 2000s. And I think that kind of just stuck with us over time. And it's funny to see the bands that like have never done that have really like never even bought in CDs, and now they're releasing their album on iTunes, and they're just like, whatever. It's just like it's really changed. But I think that's helped to kind of that's helped to set some of the road for success, because I think we learned what it took to put out a product and what it took to make it meaningful, I guess, beyond just writing some songs. Sure.
So were you born and raised in the sort of, Southern Ontario area?
Yeah. Right. Like between Hamilton and Toronto there, right in Burlington. So
okay.
Yeah, I was born and raised there, and I still live there today. I ended up just, like kind of sticking with it, and it's a cool area. I like it.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I mean,
you know it.
I know it intimately, and it's so I have such a fond, not only memories, but just like I was obsessed with that area of music. Like once I started to become more aware of, in bands, whatever, in the early 90s, from, Chokehold and all that sort of stuff.
Of course.
And then obviously Grade, and then just becoming an unapologetic, Chris Callahan fanboy, and loving Kirst and, everything that he has done. It was one of those things where it didn't make any sense to me why so much music was coming out of like this Southern Ontario area. And then like even obviously bleeding up to Montreal, because like, I don't know. It just felt like something was in the water geographically there, that it, like, even though all the bands didn't sound alike, there was that lineage that made sense, in the same way that probably people can look at Orange County and kind of do the same sort of thing.
True.
But I'm sure it was just one of those things, like once you started to go to shows and start to find the scene, so to speak, did you feel that sense of like, oh wow, like I don't know what this is, but this is rad?
Yeah, I mean, I think I'm thinking back, I don't think we like were in a bubble. I don't think we took it for granted. I think we knew it was special. I mean, I remember like when I went to my first like Hellfest, and like every band shouting out "No Warning," and I'm like, that's our band, that's our like hometown band. You know what I mean?
Right.
Like, but I knew that was big, And then I knew like, I remember seeing like Kirst play their second show, and I knew that was like going to be a big deal. Like I knew that was like an important moment, And then seeing Grade like come back and play the local hall after they just toured across Europe and, and released these records, that was a big moment. There was a lot of celebration. And that was also back in the era where it was really all about like homecoming shows or like send-off shows. And maybe you had the same thing in Orange County. Maybe you remember when like bands were breaking, they'd like do their return show, like we just toured all over the world and now we're back, and it'd be everyone come out and be like, yeah, this is the best, or it'd be like, oh, we're going to Europe for a month, so we're going to do this like kickoff show. And we used to do that stuff all the time, and it was even really just to fund what we were trying to do. It's like, oh, you go play a hometown show, you'll sell more merch, you'll make a little bit more money off the door, and that'll cover your expenses for the first like week or two of tour, and that's going to help you out, where like otherwise I don't know how bands do it. Like nowadays bands are just like jumping from thing to thing. They don't really have that fallback home community to rely on. I don't feel, at least I don't see that happening a lot,
That's a really good point. I never thought about that the kickoff show, or like you said, the coming home show, like that local thing. But yeah, you guys definitely have always waved that flag high in regards to like whether it is you guys doing a show in the suburb areas of Toronto, or whether it's doing just a proper Toronto show. When you guys did, I remember a couple years back when you did those the album shows where it's like you did, what was it, 3 or 4 nights in a row. But yeah, no, that's a good point. I didn't think about that element that seems to be missing, and I think a lot of that has to do with the fact that sometimes bands obviously splinter apart in regards to where they're living. It's like one person lives here, one person lives here, so they don't.
True, yeah.
They're not like anchored to a community in the same way that, like you said, just because all you guys still live in that area, that you feel even more connected with.
Yeah, I mean, I guess there's a lot of bands too that are like, they're almost like super groups. They're like, it's like, it's the cool guitar and vocal guy, and then they got their drummer off YouTube, and they got the bass player from Europe or something, I don't know. And they've like just put this, and they're great, and they're a great band. But it's like all those bands back in the day, it's like either they all went to the same high school, they all grew up together, and maybe not everybody was the best musician, but they created some interesting stuff because I think they were so connected, probably. Like sometimes when you get a group of people, even like for us, it's like none of us went to the same high school, but I mean, we lived within a 10-mile radius of each other pretty much. So it's like we all had the same exact experiences for all of our, developing years. So, I think that shapes people. So like we have an unspoken language, even when writing songs. It's like, because we're referencing the same influences, we're referencing the same experiences, and that really crafts something. So I think we stumble upon a lot of happy accidents because of that, and as opposed to being too calculated. It's like, well, we got the super guy on this instrument, and he's awesome, he's going to do his super thing that he does, and it's super not connected to any of us. It's like we just have a much more in tune kind of vibe, I think. And that was true of, I guess, a lot of those local scenes that were so geographically centered and not decentralized because of the internet, like how it is now, or whatever other change that's happened over the years.
Right. Well, I just thought of a funny notion where it's just like, yeah, you guys could all like suck together and get better over time. Like there is.
Yeah, and that's what we did. Yeah, that's totally it. Yeah,
totally. There's that element of like, because you don't have the sort of infinite resources of, obviously, like you said, finding the best musician. It's usually just like sheer proximity, like you were mentioning, where it's just like, oh, like that person is like tolerable at their particular instrument, but they're cool, so I want to hang out with them. And that was like the sheer function of, like you said, just because all of the people were surrounding you. It's not like you had infinite resources to pull out the best musicians possible.
Exactly. Yeah, no, totally. Yeah. It's like, and I mean, I think even for us, it's like we kind of rode two ways. I mean, I think we all got better as musicians naturally from the experience, the sheer practice, and all the performing. And B, I think technology also got better. So it's like, not that we rely on technology, but it's just like our recordings started sounding better because the producers were better, and we had better equipment, and we bought better gear, and this and that, so you have all these things. So that's where it's like some bands like come out with their first record and it sounds so polished, and it's like, where do you go from there almost? It's like all the bands I'm sure you and I listen to, like you look at bands like Cave-In or something like that. I mean, the early recordings are a bit raw, but that's what made them special. And at the end they sound polished, and it's like you can pick an era and you can like that, and it's like it's diverse and it grew, and you see like it's not just a constant thing. It you have the ups and the downs, and that's that's what was cool. You know, it was cool. Remember, it's like, yeah, I like the demo tape. It just had that raw feel. And it's like, well, I like the full length, you know, it was a bit more produced. You don't have that a lot of nowadays. You know what I mean? And like, luckily we kind of got that still.
Yeah, no, that's true. I really like the way that you're presenting these things, because it's just, it seems, I guess, obvious, like the way that you're describing it. But yeah, I just didn't consider where it's like, yeah, if you're releasing your full length and it's like your debut full length and it is the most, you know, like you said, polished, produced, whatever word you want to put on it. Like you said, where do you go from there? Like, where it's like some bands, I always, you know, reference like At the Gates and Slaughter to the Soul, how they obviously felt like they couldn't top that. So that's why they broke up. And it's like, you know, bands that are like, just like, you know, maybe like 18, 19 years old are releasing these like really, really polished records. And you're just like, well, where do you go from there? You can't get any more polished, or where are you going?
Yeah. And maybe they're all shredders too. You know, it's like, it's just funny. I mean, and like, because I love seeing the growth of it all. And I guess it goes back to us. I mean, we'd all record demos. You'd record demos, but you'd also release them, I guess. And that was just what you did. Mm-hmm. You know, and it was cool to see the change. I've always argued with Bill. I always tell Bill, because, you know, we're both like piebald fans, and I always tell him, like, you know, they lost me after the first demo tape,
right? You
know, or maybe after Sometimes Friends Fight, and then I'm like, sorry, I lost it. And it's just like, that's like such like a mean thing to even say about a band. It's just like they weren't even like probably even like knew what they were doing yet. And it's like, no, but that's what I like. I like the raw, great stuff, and he was still screaming. Right. I don't know. Like, you know, it's just like, but yeah, and like nowadays, I mean, I guess there's the odd band that like kind of the only modern thing that I've seen, and it's like, because I love music, and I love all genres of music, and most of the music I listen to is well removed from the scene, just because what I like. But the only thing I've seen modernly, the example of really, is Title Fight, and I haven't really got like to figure that out. But it's such an interesting anomaly of a band that's like they completely changed its sound, and it's cool because fans can literally pick the record they like, and they're completely different. And that's the closest comparison to like say what Cave-In did, or what some of these other bands did, you know, which no one else is doing. No one's taking risks like that either. You know, it's like, it's a big change.
Yeah, it's a very good point. I could see the comparisons of why you would look at that and be like, oh yeah, that's analogous to, you know, what was happening as you were able to watch bands like literally grow right in front of you, as opposed to come birthed into the world like fully formed, you know.
Yeah, because I mean, like everything. I mean, there's like a lot of like the 80s and 90s, like a lot of those bands, like they maybe started out as like a new wave band and ended up as like a hardcore band. I don't know. You never knew like what people were like, because things were evolving in such a weird pace. But now as people are like, they've done their homework, they're like, nope, we know exactly how it's going to sound like. This is all we can do. We've boiled it down. We've done the chemistry on it. This is what we are. You know, there's no experimentation.
Yeah, no, for sure. And so, you know, as you started to kind of discover independent music, and you know, what did your parents do for a living as you were growing up? Like, what was your family structure like?
Yeah, I'm the only child, and just my parents both worked just jobs in the area. Like my dad was like a science guy, like a water purification. My mom worked at a steel company. Real simple, you know, suburb stuff. So lived in the suburbs, went to shows every weekend, sometimes multiple shows in a weekend, you know, and yeah, it was fun. It was easy, and I think it really like kept me focused, because I was too busy going to shows or playing shows to get in any kind of trouble, you know?
Right. Yeah. I definitely, you know, I want to drill down the only child experience just because I can identify with that. I didn't have brothers or sisters, and I found, I mean, I love being an only child. Like, I don't know, do you have different experiences?
I'm fine with it. Yeah, I'm totally fine with it.
I always find it funny because people always immediately have that gut reaction, just because, you know, only children sometimes, you know, get inappropriately maligned, where they're just like, oh, you must be really lonely and like don't talk to anybody and have no social skills or whatever. But I find so many people have that gut reaction of just being like, oh, well, why didn't you have brothers or sisters? Like, it's your decision, you know?
Yeah, I know, right?
But
yeah, it's just.
But you really enjoyed the I guess, obviously, you know, nothing beyond that experience, but I guess kind of looking around and knowing other people, like you are glad you kind of had that environment.
Yeah, I think it's kind of shaped like my personality. Like I'm very like, I don't know. I don't like waiting for things. I don't like just kind of going with the flow. I like things to be calculated. I like the things to be in control, you know? And I think like the chaos of a sibling would maybe kind of take it the opposite way, you know? Or I don't know. I think I lean more to type A, I guess, and like the way that you know what I mean? I handle stuff. So I think it's probably because of that. I'm guessing in some way, you know?
Yeah, I can see that. And so as you started to discover independent music and, like you said, go to shows every weekend and become, you know, really, really enamored by the style of music, were your parents ever concerned? Were they, you know, showing signs of like Paul's a pretty, you know, straight and narrow kid. Like, I don't, this is a weird vibe. I don't get this. Or were they generally just kind of like, well, as long as he's out of trouble, like, that's okay?
I think because I was also playing music and going to like shows, I think it was just a supportive thing. You know what I mean? I mean, I never really had that thing where it's like, these hardcore bands you're listening to sound really violent. You know, it wasn't like, and I mean, they obviously never went to the show, so they never got to see like, you know, when I saw like Haymaker play and they threw like fireworks at the crowd and like in a small like 200 cap venue, like they weren't there, so they don't know how violent that was, or like,
right,
you know, or like even like at a Koehelr show where like, I mean, you got big dudes moshing, you know, and I'm like, I'm scared to get hurt, but you know, it's just like, yeah, it wasn't any of a concern and thing, and but I also like went to a lot more chill shows than that, you know what I mean? Like going to see like Yola Tango when I'm 18, you know, like definitely no one's moshing there, you know. So
right.
Like,
not an intimidating show from that perspective.
Yeah, exactly. So so no concerns really.
Yeah, that's cool. Did you gravitate towards drums immediately, or were there other things that you kind of, you know, fiddled around with as you were finding how it was that you wanted to express yourself?
I was taking like piano lessons for like 2 years and kind of like working on music theory that way, because it's kind of a good fundamental kind of way to learn. But then just gravitated to rhythm, and kind of my piano teacher lent me a drum kit for the summer, which is kind of a bad idea. She worked at like a music school.
That's so random.
And then I just like never took another piano lesson. So it's like, thanks a lot. You just got yourself, you know, fired.
Right. You put yourself out of a job.
Yeah. And then just like and then immediately it was like, well, I can start a band. You know, it's like I've got a drum kit now. So it's like me and like my friends when we're like in like the 7th grade, just being like, yeah, we can like, you know, we're listening to a lot of grunge music. Let's just do that. Which is so funny because relevant to now, everybody wants to be in a grunge band. And I'm like, I did that when I was like 12.
Sure.
You know, but,
of course, because that was the music that was on the radio.
Yeah, exactly. Right. But it was so cool. Even though it was on the radio, it was so cool, you know? Mm-hmm. But yeah, I don't know. And then that just kind of went from there. But I still like, you know, I still like, well, I really like electronic music and stuff, which obviously derives from that and allows you to kind of compose a lot of creative stuff using that fundamental basis.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
I attempted to play drums early in my my musical career, but the reason I gravitated towards it because obviously you could hit things really hard and that was fun. But then I liked it because obviously there was like. You know, at the time, like I know there's obviously notes for drums, but at the same time, it's not the same capacity as obviously a guitar. So I was just like, oh, there's no notes. It's just you just got to hit it and like keep some time.
Yeah, I remember like I went through a couple of years of like drum lessons where like I'd read drum sheets and I'm just like, this is like holding me back. You know, I just like, I mean, it's cool. It's really cool that you can transcribe drums and you can read it. It is good, I think, for some fundamentals, but I was picking up everything by ear and kind of like analyzing. Like I learned how to tune out the guitars and just listen to the drums in the song. And I'm like, I need to learn how to play that, you know? So it's like, that's kind of what I was focused on most.
Right. I remember too with the you know, when Green Day's Dookie came out, I was so excited because it's like I felt like I could play air drums to Trey Cool and like hit every cymbal, like, you know, like I was like, oh yeah, I got every cymbal hit like perfectly. Did you have any records like that where you were like, you felt were sort of in your wheelhouse where you're just like, yes, I can play this. Like this makes me a solid drummer in my own, you know, Kid Logic head.
I mean, the stuff that was listening to a lot when I was really playing drums, especially in the beginning, like Smashing Pumpkins, like Melancholy just came out, which, I mean, the drum parts on that are actually pretty insane. I think I thought I could play parts that I definitely couldn't at the time, but like that's what I was like analyzing, you know, and that was more of a traditional approach to drumming anyways. So like stuff like that, and ironically enough, even like some of the Stone Temple Pilots stuff, because that was really a band that influenced me too. Because some of the best rhythms and songs, you know, like so like all that kind of stuff was happening when I was really starting to play drums.
That's awesome. And so did you for all intent and purposes, is like Silverstein your first like real band, or like did you play in something before that, like you played some shows? Because I just wasn't aware of your trajectory.
Yeah, no, I mean, I did this like little grunge band thing, which we recorded some demos and played like 10 shows, you know, and then then we started Silverstein, and then aside from that, I just did a couple other little things, like some kind of more like poppy kind of bands. But we recorded some demos, played a couple shows, and that was it. Just got too busy, you know, always with Silverstein to really do anything else. So,
sure.
So that's kind of what happened, you know? Yeah.
And did you? Yeah, I mean, because I just think most people look, especially a band that has existed for, you know, as long as you guys have that the idea of it being your first real band, people are just like, oh,
it's wow. Funny. Yeah.
Yeah. It's like, it's crazy to think of it like that, but yeah, it's lasted you for quite some time.
This show is sponsored by BetterHelp. Let me tell you, the holidays are awesome. They've got some great moments, whether it's spending time with friends and family, gift giving, all of the things. I personally love Christmas lights. Like, I can't wait to put them up. It just makes me feel warm inside. But there are moments where it's like, man, it's overwhelming, or I'm feeling really alone or sad. All of the things that just, you know, can kind of compound it during the holidays. That is why you need to take a beat and maybe take that moment for yourself. Give the gift of time to yourself. And that's honestly why I love dipping into therapy. That's why I also love working with BetterHelp, because they make finding a therapist online so dang easy. So if you're thinking of starting therapy, give BetterHelp a try. Like I said, it's entirely online. It's designed to be convenient, flexible, and suited to your schedule. Just fill out a brief questionnaire, and then you get matched with a licensed therapist, and you can switch therapists at any time for any reason at no additional charge. Please, in this season of giving, give to yourself as well with BetterHelp. Visit betterhelp.com/Ray to get 10% off of your first month. That's BetterHelp, HELP.com/Ray for 10% off your first month. Take care of yourself, please.
This episode is brought to you by Toyota. We all agree that reducing carbon emissions is a good thing, and once again, Toyota is leading the way. We hear a lot about fully electric vehicles, and Toyota has them, with more on the way. But we also know a BEV is not for everyone, whether it's because of cost, range, or concerns about finding a charging station when you need it. Plus, the raw materials used to manufacture batteries are limited. Enter Beyond Zero, Toyota's vision for a carbon-neutral future, in vehicles and in manufacturing plants too in the years ahead. The materials used to make just one long-range battery for an EV could be used to make batteries for 6 plug-in hybrids or 90 gas-electric hybrids. That's why Toyota's position today is electrified, diversified, empowering you to choose how to reduce your own carbon footprint with the vehicle that's right for you. A hybrid, plug-in hybrid, or battery EV. So shop, learn more, and get details at toyota.com/beyond zero. Toyota, let's go places.
Hello there, this is Malcolm Gladwell, host of Revisionist History. eBay Motors is here for the ride. You saw the potential. Through some elbow grease, fresh installs, and a whole lot of love, you transformed 100,000 miles and a body full of rust into a drive entirely its own. Look to your left, look to your right. No one's got a ride like this. There's nothing else that sounds like, feels like, or looks like the set of wheels in your garage. With over 122 million parts for your number one ride or die, you can make sure your ride stays running smoothly, so there's no limit to how far you can take it. Brake kits, turbochargers, engines, exhaust kits, roof racks, LED headlights, bumpers, Whatever your baby needs, eBay Motors has it. And with eBay Guaranteed Fit, it's guaranteed to fit your ride the first time, every time, or your money back. Plus, at these prices, you're burning rubber, not cash. Keep your ride or die alive at ebaymotors.com. Eligible items only. Exclusions apply.
So excuse me, you look thirsty over there. Are you thirsty? Okay, that's what I thought, because I am here to provide you a solution. I'm not just talking like water. I mean, water's fine, but this is something that is just trumps water. I'll just go ahead and say it. So this is a product called Zevia. Zevia. Say it with me. Zevia. So the reason this thing is so unbelievably awesome is that it's a 0-calorie, naturally sweetened soda that's totally different. Because, I mean, you've seen the diet stuff that's out there. 99.9% of it, I'll be straight up, is terrible. Garbage. This is so not. So there's no sugar, no calories, and non-GMO project verified to make this a cleaner and healthier soda option. Zevia is available in 15 different flavors. My personal favorite, Dr. Zevia. It's so good. I love it. Drink that one first and foremost. Just, you won't regret that. But there's like cream soda, black cherry, cola, ginger ale, and 0 calories. Unbelievable stuff. So go to Zevia.com/podcast because Zevia is giving away thousands of free 6-packs. Seriously. You can do this. Just go to Zevia.com/podcast, and then you will be able to potentially win a free case of soda. Like you can't lose on that. And like I've been telling you, over the past couple ads, is that this stuff is unbelievable. My mom introduced me to it years ago, and I fell off the train for some reason. Just didn't drink it for a while, and boy, was that a mistake. My wife is also lives with me, obviously, and she was like, "Oh my gosh, you got a lot of soda," and I'm like, "Yeah, try this out." She does not like soda. She does not like the bubbliness of it. I made her try some of this, and she was like, "That's actually really good." So from a person who does not like soda typically, drinks this and is like, "That's pretty good." To me, that is a resounding recommendation. So if you are trying to kick that habit of the super thick syrup, like just is terrible for you, drop that and go to Zevia, because like I said, 0 sugar, 0 calories. Basically, it's the elixir of the gods. I'm just going to go ahead and put that out there, and that's what I'm calling it. But visit Zevia.com/podcast, and you will maybe be able to win a free 6-pack. So do it up.
Growing up doesn't mean you need to outgrow heavy metal. And now for discerning metalheads everywhere, there's a podcast just for you. Metal Brainiac is the smartest half hour in heavy metal. There's no beer or bro talk, and we leave Satan at the door as we dive into serious conversations with top metal artists. We dig into the creative process and explore the challenges of expression when people can't make out the lyrics. I'm Matt Peiken, the host of Metal Brainiac, and you can find us every week on iTunes and wherever you find your favorite podcasts, and also at metalbrainiac.com.
Like you were mentioning earlier, and we kind of briefly touched on, so you've, for as long as I've known you, you've definitely been the, the business guy of the band. Obviously, everybody in the band has, opinions, and, everybody weighs in democratically, I can imagine, within the band.
Of course, yeah.
But obviously, it's all kind of funneled through you. Was that something that you just basically kind of took on immediately because, like you said, it obviously fit your personality, you like the focus of it, or did it just kind of like evolve and then randomly fall on your plate? So walk me through the evolution there, because usually, and I've joked around with Shane when he was on my show about this, I was like, you're not the business guy of the band. Usually the singers of the band, that kind of falls on them because they're the people see that person the most or whatever. But so it's kind of weird, for me personally, just to look at, it's like, the drummer, he's the person that's kind of, putting the pieces together. So like, walk me through that evolution.
Yeah. I mean, I think it's just like kind of early on, I'm like obviously not like a songwriter in the band. I think it was kind of like, okay, well, these guys are going to like write a bunch of songs, and I'm going to do all the stuff to like make these songs big, and I'm going to like do whatever I can to like make sure everything stays on schedule and everything, everyone's happy and like, okay, we have a label. Someone needs to talk to label every day. And I'm like, I remember getting like kind of advice early on from some other victory artists, like with the first label we signed to. They're like, yeah, like it's a great label. Just, you got to stay on it. Like you got to talk to your label all the time. I'm like, that's good advice. Like, even we just played a show to 50 kids, email them and tell them, we had a great show. People are psyched. We're psyched. You kind of learn, you're like, okay, like every day there's something you got to do. Okay. I need to talk to label. I need to talk to the publicist. Okay. How's the bank account looking? All right. We got to make sure that we can pay for all this stuff, and it just becomes like, okay, well, I'm starting to learn this stuff and like, okay, I can do this. And then when it's like, I can do this and wait, now we're being successful and I know how to do this better than some other people. Like and really what you grow into over years and years. And now, we've just completed our 15th year as a band. And actually this year is the biggest year, the highest grossing, most successful, best year we've ever done, which is insane after 15 years. You really I think we've really learned who our fans are, what they like, how to reach them, how to cater to them, and also how to nurture them. And I think it's a very important thing. And it's like, there's a great ton of professionals out there that could probably do an equal job. Maybe they could do better, but it's like, they haven't done it for 15 years to know all that stuff. It would be a big learning curve. It would be a lot of stuff. And that's what I'm seeing with a lot of like longer career artists that, you kind of grow into the stuff and I'm taking notes every day in my head just about how to do things or things I want to do differently. And we really rode the wave. It's like, we've had, times where the trend of what we're doing was really on the low and you kind of had to battle through it. And then technology has been up against you and this and that, but it's just taking the time. And I think luckily we've kept our eyes open to do it the best we possibly can. And I'm just really proud of it. And I think that's what motivates me. But it's really just been that evolution of time and seeing the success when we've done things ourselves or when I've kind of put forth an idea or tried to help out in whatever way possible.
Yeah, no, I see what you're talking about, where it's just like the notion of never stop learning and don't feel like you know everything, because usually at that point you'll be handed a whole new set of challenges that you would have had no idea how to handle previously. But I mean, I think that's why a lot of people may look at what you guys have done and like, obviously you've never been to the point of, being on the radio and selling, 1 million records and like having, gold records and all the other sort of commercial success. But the, whatever, the old adage of slow and steady wins the race, where it's like for all intent and purposes, you guys should not be a band anymore. Just as far as like you said, surviving the trends and doing all that. But I think that's what, to me, just as an outsider, like looking at what you guys have done, I think that's what kind of, endears you to people, where it's just not like, it's ever felt like you guys have been like, oh dude, they're on the other side of the mountain. Like this is painful to watch. You guys shouldn't be doing these, anniversary shows and 40 people show up or what, because you see bands like that where you're just like, oh God, guys, hang it up, but you guys have never, thankfully hit that point. I don't know if I'm just, there's no question in there, but I'm just kind of talking out loud. Whereas like the people that follow you, as far as your fans are concerned, I think they do recognize that you're still their band, like you're not unrecognizable from what you were, 10 years ago.
No. And honestly, I think we're lucky that I think we're writing new songs that I think are legitimately better than the old stuff. It might be different. So maybe people might not like it more than the old stuff, or maybe some of them do, some of them don't. But I think we are writing the best stuff possible and producing it the best we can. So I think that really speaks volumes for us. And another big thing too is we've never really slowed down. We've seen the void of and identified it and then nurtured it. We haven't. I mean, like obviously you need to take time off sometimes, or maybe you need to step away, write or make a record, or not tour an area for a spot, or be creative and be like, how can we do this different next time? But I mean, there's little things that you do just to make every time you come to a city different, whether it be playing different songs, having different merch, branding the tour differently, touring with different types of bands, refreshing kind of things like that, bringing different production. And we think about that. We don't just say, oh, it was good last time, let's just do the same thing. We change all of those things, and we do it regularly. You know, like, for example, this year we're hitting some of the same cities for the third time in 1 year. And every time has been completely different, and we've done all those things differently. So our fans get an experience, because there are, like, I talk to the fans that have been to all 3 shows now, and none of them are like bummed. Like, they're stoked. They are different songs. Things are different. It's just that's really important. And then it's like, okay, now we can take a step back from there. Let's go work on somewhere else. Let's tour somewhere else, or let's work on another project, or what else can we do to make things more interesting, you know? And then obviously social media and online stuff that feeds people in a totally different way without even having to go tour, and learning about, like, the significance about your Facebook post and what kind of reach it's going to get, and how to brand the graphics. And, you know, we have a tour videographer, photographer, you know, for like the second time this year, but really the first time ever. And that's opened up a whole new way of capturing the best quality content that make people even more psyched. So it's a real feeding frenzy as far as like how we kind of toss more into the pool for everybody to get excited about.
Yeah, no, that's super exciting. The thread I wanted to kind of pull on when you were saying all that is like it seems too that there's obviously no ego kind of tied up within the context of Silverstein, not only as a collective, but then just as the individual members. Like, even though there's been many times where you guys could have bought into whatever hype was being, you know, tossed on you, or you guys are the, you know, next big thing, or whatever, you know, whatever hyperbole is wrapped up in that. And I think, I don't know. I think there's definitely something within that idea of you guys just having, like I said, no ego, or the fact that you can, it's like, whatever. Of course, this younger band is going to play over us because they're more popular or whatever. And you guys have never shied away from being like, okay, well, yeah, I guess we're less popular than we were, you know, this time through, but then, you know, maybe in a year we'll be back to where we're at. You know, kind of walk me through that thought process that I know you guys have definitely put a lot of conscious effort into, and not be, you know, kind of take your pill and swallow it and be like, okay, well, that just means we need to work harder or whatever.
Yeah, I mean, I think you have to kind of like read the kind of the scenario of what's going on, because like it could be at the end of your deal with your label, the label's not really pumping any marketing into your band, and maybe the latest record was ambitious, but maybe people didn't really connect with it as much, and maybe the support bands you brought out weren't the right thing. Maybe the kind of the design and the vibe of things aren't really meshing. So then you have to be like, all right, we're going to make another record. So that kind of deals with that. There'll be other tours. There'll be other chances to do some of these things. Just identify the things that aren't working and make them better. Or maybe it's just the time of the year. Maybe it's just, you know, we went out on tour at the wrong time. Maybe the album came out too late, too early, whatever it is. Or maybe maybe we can make a video. Maybe we can promote that single better. Maybe we can redesign some things. Maybe we record another B-side, put that out, or remarket. There's always like kind of things that you can do. And then, but it's also like being an artist. It's like when you release a new album, it's almost like a new chance. It's not even just like a new chance to like prove yourself, because we're not just sitting around trying to prove that we're able to do this. It's just another chance to be like, you know, we have a new idea, or something new. And it really revitalizes the brand of what we're doing, and that's always like a really exciting time, you know, for us. So it's, you know, you kind of run through those things. Plus, you know, you look at the trend. You know, remember like crunkcore? Remember that thing? You know, and then remember like when metal bands had dubstep breakdowns, like that lasted a year, and we just kept cruising through that. Came out on the other side, you know, and it's like. You also kind of like get bombarded with a bunch of stuff on the outside that's terrible or are not going to last, you know, and you get past it. So I think we just kind of keep our head up and keep stoked, and you got to remain confident there. You got to remain confident that what you're doing is the best you can do, and that you believe in it. And we always have. We never thought like, oh, you know, we could have, you know, that was a bad album. We never thought that, but sometimes you might be like, yeah, that was really ambitious and that was really cool, but now we want to get back to this, you know? It's almost like when we did like short songs, it was like cool to like do that. And like, we learned so much about even the recording process that late in our career, or our own capabilities, that when we came out, I think we made one of our best albums of all time because it had refreshed us, you know? And it's like, but that album wasn't like the pinnacle to our success. And some people didn't even understand it. And some people even hated it, but it was almost good that we did it because it almost made the next thing that much better. You know, it's like, you kind of have to look at things overall now, especially because we're so deep in. We have like 7 albums. I mean, I guess 8 if you include short songs. So it's like there's so much stuff that you can kind of, and fans can almost even cherry pick their favorite songs from your entire catalog and hate entire albums and still love your band. So it's a weird point to be in, you know. It's you really have to kind of weigh every possible thing. So it's wild.
Yeah, no, for sure. When obviously you guys were, you know, like you mentioned, releasing your first records on Victory and kind of the groundswell of supports that started to kind of build around the band. When did you yourself kind of, you know, sort of have that out of body experience where you're able to have that perspective on like, wow, this is a thing that people are identifying with. This is pretty impressive, whether it's a particular moment or whether it's like it was a particular tour, something that kind of stood out. It doesn't even have to be like your first or second record. It may have been later, but just kind of that, you know, take me through that thing that made it feel real for you.
I mean, I think it was tough because we were pretty young, and also it was, we were so big, like we were touring from tour to tour and things were so busy. But I think like really when it kind of came time to make the second record, I don't think we really had the pressure, but we knew it was going to be big, and we knew that we had that confidence, I think. And then I think playing those songs for the first time, like they were getting the immediate reaction that like, kind of like, well, people haven't heard this song and they're already going off for it. Like that was crazy because we already had a little bit of a name. So people were like paying attention. You know, but that's pretty far, and that's almost like 5 years into when we started, you know? So we had kind of really, we run the gauntlet of just like being psyched just to be playing music, not even just like drawing any people to the show. It was just great to be doing what we were doing. Like, oh yeah, we're going to tour in the van. Awesome. We're just excited, you know, like, so that almost 5 years into really kind of seeing that things were really kicking off, I think.
That's awesome. And kind of, you know, on the flip side, sort of having those soul searching moments, you know, more reflective on you personally, because, you know, everybody in bands obviously is not experiencing the same moments the same way. Like, you know, even if it is a terrible show, sometimes, you know, everybody else in the band is just like, oh, whatever. But then, you know, that particular night, it's hitting you like way harder because you're just like, oh gosh, like, what am I doing? Like, you know, like I said, those sort of soul searching moments. What were, you know, whether it's like particular tours or, you know, record cycles or whatever, what kind of sticks out in your head as far as being like, all right, this wasn't a very positive time for me, but, you know, I was able to get through it. I put my head down, or whatever sort of, you know, thing that kind of got you through the other side. Cause obviously you're still standing, you're still a band. You know, did you have those sort of, soul searching moments for you, or was it generally kind of, you know, on the up and up for the most part?
I mean, I think even like maybe like kind of like 2007 was like towards the end of it was pretty rough. We had been touring a lot, and also we had done a record that we kind of had to rush, and it was not a good experience. And you know, I think it was tough because it was like, and we weren't focused at that point. We didn't know like where the right tours or like how to do them and all that stuff. And I think it was by the end of the year, it was tough. It was tough doing it. Like even I like physically, like my body wasn't keeping up with me. Like I was in a lot of pain from like drumming, and like it was really, really tough. I didn't know how to manage that, you know, and you're just like, so you're trying to figure out how to get through that. And I'm like, I guess this is my job. I don't know. Like, it's still like, I'm still pretty young at that point. And like, we've been doing it for 7 years, but professionally for about 4, but it was like 4 nonstop, like 4, like 300 days a year on the road, you know? And like already 3 commercially released albums. But then I guess like you kind of come out of it. I don't really know how you get refocused, but I know by the beginning of 2008, that was like, I think our biggest, by far our biggest headliner ever. And it went so successful. And I think I think just 2007 was a rough year, and I think we got out of it. We started 2008 off right, and then I think that started to develop the next chapter, because we'd gotten through those really first 4 or so years of really grinding it, and finally we're I think feeling a lot better. At least personally for me, that it just kind of changed. I don't really know what it is. I mean, obviously, I guess it's like you kind of rely on the fans to be your motivation, because without that, what's the point? But sometimes it just takes time to, it takes a break. It takes like a step back to know that you love it and know that it's going well.
Yeah, no, that's a really good. I like that, because it definitely takes you sometimes to get to those really low points in order for you to be able to appreciate whether it is a good tour or a good show or whatever, to kind of put you back in that mental focus of being like, hey, maybe this isn't as bad as like last night or last week or whatever. It kind of you have to have those highs and lows in order to be able to enjoy the highs.
Exactly. Yeah.
This episode is brought to you by Toyota. We all agree that reducing carbon emissions is a good thing, and once again, Toyota is leading the way. We hear a lot about fully electric vehicles, and Toyota has them, with more on the way. But we also know a BEV is not for everyone, whether it's because of cost, range, or concerns about finding a charging station when you need it. Plus, the raw materials used to manufacture batteries are limited. Enter Beyond Zero, Toyota's vision for a carbon-neutral future, in vehicles and in manufacturing plants too in the years ahead. The materials used to make just one long-range battery for an EV could be used to make batteries for 6 plug-in hybrids or 90 gas-electric hybrids. That's why Toyota's position today is electrified, diversified, empowering you to choose how to reduce your own carbon footprint with the vehicle that's right for you. A hybrid, plug-in hybrid, or battery EV. So shop, learn more, and get details at toyota.com/beyond zero. Toyota, let's go places.
Hello there, this is Malcolm Gladwell, host of Revisionist History. eBay Motors is here for the ride. You saw the potential. Through some elbow grease, fresh installs, and a whole lot of love, you transformed 100,000 miles and a body full of rust into a drive entirely its own. Look to your left, look to your right. No one's got a ride like this. There's nothing else that sounds like, feels like, or looks like the set of wheels in your garage. With over 122 million parts for your number one ride or die, you can make sure your ride stays running smoothly, so there's no limit to how far you can take it. Brake kits, turbochargers, engines, exhaust kits, roof racks, LED headlights, bumpers, whatever your baby needs, eBay Motors has it. And with eBay Guaranteed Fit, it's guaranteed to fit your ride the first time, every time, or your money back. Plus, at these prices, you're burning rubber, not cash. Keep your ride or die alive at ebaymotors.com. Eligible items only. Exclusions apply.
My mental health meds were helping, but they led to uncontrolled movements called TD, tardive dyskinesia. It felt like my movements were in the spotlight.
Ingrezza valbenazine capsules is a prescription medicine for adults with TD. It's the only TD treatment that's always one pill, once daily, and it's #1 prescribed. And people taking Ingrezza can stay on most mental health meds. Ingrezza can cause depression, suicidal thoughts, or actions in patients with Huntington's disease. Pay close attention to and call your doctor if you become depressed, have sudden changes in mood, behaviors, feelings, or have thoughts of suicide. Don't take Ingrezza if you're allergic to its ingredients. Ingrezza may cause serious side effects, including angioedema, potential heart rhythm problems, and abnormal movements. Report fevers, stiff muscles, or problems thinking, as these may be life-threatening. Sleepiness is the most common side effect.
Now that treatment has reduced my TD movements, it's nice. People focus more on me.
Ask your doctor about Ingrezza or learn more at Ingrezza.com. That's INGREZZA.com.
And then, kind of where you personally stand now. Like, I've always admired your eclectic music taste because, it's definitely, I think most people, it's like when you're, young and watching bands and seeing the music that they create, usually you don't have the context that they're probably not listening to what it is that they're actually creating, like they're probably into some stuff that you're just like, oh my gosh, I didn't even know that. You were into this whole other, singer, songwriter, acoustic thing or whatever.
Exactly.
And so, what kind of has drawn you towards electronic music in general, because like you mentioned earlier, it's a huge, affinity and passion of yours, not only from listening to it, but then obviously creating it on the side as well. What kind of, I guess, flips your switch about that particular music in general?
My biggest thing is that I like that electronic music is basically a blank canvas, and that so many of the great artists don't fall to any kind of template or any kind of structure. And sometimes they do, and sometimes it naturally leans that way. But you basically, like, even from the very sounds, they're all created, and they can be whatever. You're not working with a palette like you are with rock music. You have your guitars and you have your bass and your drums, and there's different tones, but it's more like three-dimensional, where like there's no limit of dimension on electronic music. So I really love that kind of stuff, and that's where I even experimented on stuff on the side, where it's so much fun to get into that world, and it's even super relaxing for me to like kind of work on that kind of stuff, or like listen to it and stuff like that. So that's really my big thing. And plus, like, you pull some amazing rhythms out of some of that stuff. Like, I mean, I can listen to some of those records and like even be influenced on something that could even apply to this band, even, or like just overall, and it really kind of keeps your mind open as far as music goes, I'd say.
That's awesome. Yeah, it's definitely. I think. Obviously, it's a symptom of growing older, and you can't just continually listen to the same records over and over. And you have to. Actually, that's not true, because obviously some people have a tendency to just basically go to their old reliable stuff and then don't ever listen to the stuff that they grew up on or whatever, and don't.
Totally. Yeah, there's those people that like they stopped discovering bands after they turned 21 or something, and that's fine. But for me, I'm like, I love new music. Like, I subscribe to Apple Music. I'm constantly checking out new stuff and then buying on vinyl what I like and stuff, and it's awesome. This year has been like an amazing year for music too. So I've been really excited about it.
Yeah, that's it. It is exciting, and I think that's the flipping over. I always use the analogy of like flipping over a rock and finding this whole different universe that's underneath there, and just like, yeah, you trip into something that you never would have thought of was a thing, 5 years ago, but then all of a sudden it's this whole other universe that you can get obsessed and, only child-esque like about.
Yeah, exactly.
And so, because, obviously like where the band is at right now, that you guys, you still spend a majority of the time on the road, and you personally are married, and you've been married now for what, 3 years, 4 years? Am I crazy? Where's it?
Actually, in March it'll be 6 years, which is crazy to think it's been that long. I can't believe it. Time's gone by super fast. So.
Yeah, that's amazing.
Yeah.
And so now, obviously, your wife is very familiar with what you're doing, but I'm sure there's still those instances of how you've had to become accustomed being away from her so much, and kind of talk to me about the navigation of what it's like, because I think a lot of people that are on the outside and just obviously go to shows and watch bands don't know the strain that gets put on personal relationships back home and stuff like that. So tell me how you've kind of navigated that.
Yeah, I think you just have to really compartmentalize the time, because it's like when we're together, we spend like so much time together, and like she's like my everything, and we just like we synchronize on everything. Like, we love all the same music, even the obscure stuff that I love, and the shows that we go to, we both equally love, and all of the culture and stuff, because I love culture and stuff like that. So we love all the same stuff, and we spend a lot of time together, and we share all that stuff. And you really have to, and we love to travel. That's like our big thing, is we love to travel. And that's like almost like kind of our hobby together. And like, I know that I travel for a living. So it's like, it's funny because like we kind of like always have one big trip on the go, and you spend so much time planning it and thinking about it and talking about it. And that's just so much fun, and even though, like I said, I travel for a living, it's cool to do it with somebody else and to go to different places that I don't normally do on tour. So that makes it really exciting for us, and let me kind of step away from this from time to time. And then, but I think, she's super supportive, and honestly, being married is like the best. It honestly, I think it cuts out so much of that stress, or so much of that uncertainties that may happen just you know, in a more casual setting. So, and I mean, assuming hopefully, you know, if some people get married, that hopefully they're on the same page, and luckily I am. So it's like, you know, you immediately know you have the same vision, the same goals, and you know how to balance each other, you know, like if I'm having a rough day, or if I don't feel well, or if, like, you know, I'm stressed or whatever, like she understands it and knows how to complement that, or knows when I need to do my thing or whatever. So, you know, it works well for me, but it's tough being away from home. You know, you just have to like really soak up the time and really appreciate the time together and when you're at home, you know, and I do. And honestly, it definitely makes you appreciate home like 100 times more every time you go away, even if it's for like a weekend. But that's probably a lot of people feel that way, even if you don't travel for a living. You know, it's you know, it's nice to go away, but it's even like nicer to get home sometimes.
Yeah, it's not much sweeter when you're able to experience it.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
The last thing I want to hit on was the idea that, you know, I mean, bands don't last forever. Like you can't expect this to be, you know, sustaining you for the next, you know, 20 years and that sort of stuff. And not like I'm saying that the band is going to break up next year, but it's like, you know, do you personally have visions for the future in regards to like, okay, like I'm, you know, if Silverstein organically comes to an end, like would I attempt to create music in a different fashion, or would I want to try to start another band? Like, you know, have you entertained thoughts like that? Like I said, I'm front loading it for you so that people aren't misreading this where it's like, oh yeah, Paul says Silverstein's going to break up and he's going to start a new band, but I'm just,
yeah.
But you know, what sort of visions do you have for your own, whether it's like maybe pulling on visions that you had for, you know, when you were younger in regards to like, oh, like I'm not going to play in a band for my whole life. Like I'll be a teacher or whatever, you know, what sort of thoughts do you have kicking around your head in regards to that?
Yeah, I think, I love the music industry and I've learned a lot about it, and it'd be fun to do something on the behind the scenes and working more in the industry. I could possibly see something like that, you know, who knows, like, things are changing every day. So there's like, I mean, there's companies and whole divisions and technologies that didn't exist 5 years ago that could be a cool place to work. Who knows, right? And
right.
It's, who knows where all this stuff's going. I mean, I think as far as music goes, I'd always love to play music. I love playing drums, even if it's by myself or with friends or commercially, you know, like it doesn't really matter. So I don't think, because, you know, there's some people that are like, yeah, if this happened tomorrow, I probably wouldn't pick up my instrument again. Like, I'm definitely not one of those people. Like, I love playing drums, so that would never stop me from doing that, even recreationally. But, yeah, I mean, maybe something in the industry, you know, and like, who knows? Like, you know, I love living in Canada, but maybe would live somewhere else, you know? Who knows? Like, maybe like do something really crazy later on in life, you know? It's kind of cool. I think nowadays, like, people have become more accepting that you may have 2, 3, 4 different careers, live in 4 or 5 different places in your life, where it used to be born and raised, lived in that one place, had that one job, that's it. You know, it's like the world it's a globalized economy. It's a globalized vision of culture and technology, and everyone's working together, that, you know, every place is part of this. So you can do a lot of different things all over the world. And, you know, I wouldn't want to limit myself to any one spot or thing, I think.
Yeah, no, it is exciting where you feel like there's opportunities beyond just kind of the, like I said, there are definitely, and I'm sure you've experienced this, where it's like you see people that are creating music and, you know, playing in bands and in this particular scene, and you can tell that they have no real aspirations besides like just wanting to do this particular band or whatever. And, you know, they're all in on it, and that's fine. Obviously that's an ambition, but then you have that thought in the back of your head where you're just like, I'm concerned that they'll be able to come out the other side of this, you know, where it's like, I look at you and it's just like, oh yeah, like, you know, if Silverstein ended next week, I know you would be fine. Like you said, there's many options that you can have, but you know, it's like,
I still think I'd be like, holy crap, what's going on? I'm super nervous and scared and freaking out, but I think I'd like, yeah, you just kind of like shake it and be like, well, let's just see where it lands, you know, like you kind of have to.
Right.
But,
on that same kind of similar notion, I've always been interested just because, like I mentioned earlier, you guys obviously tour with a wide variety of bands, bands that, like obviously the tour that, you are on currently with Census Fail. And then obviously you have younger bands that are on the tour. Is it one of those things where, do bands look at you guys, as like the elderly statesmen where they're just kind of like, either asking for pieces of advice or like, how did you guys do this? Or is it just one of those things where they kind of, view you as peers and it's just hangs?
But yeah, like some bands kind of get the, like, we call it like Silverstein, like mentorship program where like, well, we'll give you the whole, like, these are the mistakes we made. Don't make those. This is how to do things better, really, and for those that want to hear, and there's been bands over the years too that they've kind of done that. They've moved on to like great success. Like we've tried to share our tips and wisdom, to try to help them out. And there's some that don't care what we absolutely have to say about anything. But it's cool, and there's it's fun. No, like we like it. Like earlier this year, we got to meet this band actually from Hamilton called Rarity. And they're on Rise. They have a new record coming out. They're doing our Canadian tour next year. And they're like so young. Like they're legitimately, I think Shane could be their dad. Like they're so young. But it's just fun because they're so wide eyed and they're just so excited that, you actually can like maybe say something to them that might change their lives and they might be even more successful. And that's great, because like we want everyone to do the best they can. It's cool if we could say something that would have a lasting impression on someone. And, because I think, we've kind of been through a little bit of it. We actually do know a couple things if someone's willing to ask us a question about it, So to all those young bands out there, just ask us what anything you need. We'll help you out.
Right. You're like, we're there. We can open up our own, silversteinadvice@gmail.com and people can hit you up.
Exactly. Yeah. Send us your demo tapes and we'll help you out.
Totally. Well, I really appreciate you hanging out, Paul. This has been, it's been fun, even though we've known each other forever. You can always peel back layers of the friendship where it's like, oh, I didn't know that about you before. So, well, thank you so much.
Well, no, I really appreciate it.
Yeah, no problem.
Awesome, man.
So there you go. There was Paul, and there was my discussion with him. Like I said, a lot of very deep responses from him. I like to set up a question and obviously get out of the way and let the person answer it. I definitely felt like Paul was able to lean into a lot of the questions and conversation points that I was having. And I'll be frank, this is the first interview that I've done where I haven't prepared anything. I did my research, but I didn't have sort of a list of things that I wanted to kind of get through. And I knew I could accomplish that with Paul because we've been friends for so long. But who knows? It may be a new leaf that'll turn over where I do my research, I have it in my head, but then at the same time, I'm not actually writing down questions because, it could lead to more looser conversations, which I know some of you have given me feedback before. But anyways, the show next week will be slightly different. It'll be what I call, and this is something I actually recently did a poll on Twitter. So if you use the service Twitter, you should follow the show at 100 Words Podcast and the number 100. So yeah, I think you should follow us. But anyways, I did a poll where it was like, hey, what if once a month I did a conversation with a friend, whether it was a past guest or just people who have appeared on the show before, which I guess technically defines as past guest. Oh, sorry, I ramble sometimes. But anyways, I'm going to have what's called a friendversation, which I just coined that. I'm sure it's been said before, but basically I'm just going to kind of walk through stuff that isn't really kind of discussed on my particular show, like maybe other podcasts that do the more news beat of like, this is what's happening in independent music right now. But I'm going to have these sort of general discussion points and we'll kind of spin off one another. So it'll be a more casual, laid back vibe, less interviewee, even though technically my interviews aren't really interviews to begin with. But anyways, that's what's happening next week. And I'm not going to tell you who's going to be on because I'm still sorting that out. But the producer, as always, is Tom Richfield for the show. He's been super busy lately, wrapping up his band is playing their last show. I think it's like day before Christmas or 2 days before Christmas. Yeah, if you're in the UK area, check out Hindsight/show. That's what you should do. And visit the show's website, 100wordspodcast.com. Thank you to all the sponsors this week, and thank you to you, the listener. For those of you that are still listening to this, thank you. Anyways, until next week, have a good Christmas and all that other holiday stuff. And please be safe, everybody.
Hello, it is Ryan, and I was on a flight the other day playing one of my favorite social spin slot games on ChumbaCasino.com. I looked over at the person sitting next to me, and you know what they were doing? They were also playing Chumba Casino. Coincidence? I think not. Everybody's loving having fun with it. Chumba Casino is home to hundreds of casino-style games that you can play for free anytime, anywhere, even at 30,000 feet. So sign up now at ChumbaCasino.com to claim your free welcome bonus. That's ChumbaCasino.com and live the Chumba life.
No purchase necessary. VGW. Void where prohibited by law. See terms and conditions. 18+.
At Ford, we pride ourselves on building strong, capable vehicles. But we're only as strong as the people who drive them. People like you, who don't just see an F-150, but see what they can build with it. Because built Ford proud, it's a pact between us, our drivers, and what we can do together. Built Ford proud.
Some models, trims, and features may not be available or may be subject to change.
Have you heard about Vyvgart, F-Gard Tegamod Alpha F-Cab? Ask your neurologist if Vyvgart could be right for you and learn more at Vyvgart.com/learn. That's VYVGART.com/learn. Brought to you by Argenx.